One issue that's not talked about enough is inflammatory bowel disease and anxiety and depression. I'm not sure why people don't talk about this topic in general. I know mental health isn't talked about a lot, but it should be. It really should be because many of us go through it. Many of us IBD patients suffer from anxiety, suffer from depression, and we feel like we're alone when in reality, we're not alone. There's so many others out there just like us. And so I just hope that my story will help you all and just kind of how I discovered that I actually did suffer from anxiety and depression when I didn't realize for years I actually was suffering with this. So I never really had anxiety or depression before I was diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease. I was pretty happy go lucky. I was very energetic. I was happy all the time. Well, who can really be happy all the time? I was happy a lot of the time. Um, but then, my life seemingly changed overnight. I was, healthy one day, and really, it seemed like overnight, the next day, I found blood in my poop, and I thought, what was happening? Fast forward 3 weeks from then, and I was almost unrecognizable. I had lost over 15 pounds. I looked extremely frail. My skin was incredibly pale, and I was very sick. And I'll never forget, I was walking through Home Depot with my husband, and I remember this older gentleman just kind of stopped and stared at me almost in disbelief. It was very uncomfortable for me, but I think that I just looked like skin and bones. And, I was extremely pale. So probably in his mind, he was like, that girl's really sick. And he was right. I was extremely ill. But I didn't necessarily recognize it because I was young. I was 23. I thought, yes, I've lost a lot of weight. This isn't healthy. But I didn't realize how sick I really was. Um, and so I received my diagnosis. They gave me prednisone. I, kind of chunked up a little bit, which is not uncommon for IBD, or excuse me, not uncommon for prednisone. Many people, when they're put on steroids, they do gain weight. This is natural. A lot of it is water weight. Your appetite is increased. And then once you're off the steroids, you kind of depuff is what I say. Or if you've all seen Ghostbusters, I always like it to myself to Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. That's how I feel when I'm on steroids. But anyway, I started going through this cycle of being healthy when I was on prednisone, and then starting to flare again when I was off prednisone. And when I say healthy, I don't. It that's really not the right word. The word is I had an absence of symptoms, but I was not healthy. As in, it kind of helped decrease the inflammation in my body, but I was still nutrient deficient. I was not feeling that great in general, and I also had extreme mood shifts. But we will talk about the crazy prednisone things that I did in a different video. That definitely deserves a video of its own. But I started going through this very brutal cycle of I would get put on steroids, my symptoms would decrease and go away. I would taper off the steroids, and then boom, I would get sick again. I would have bloody stool. I would have extreme cramping. I couldn't control my bowels. It was very, very miserable and very depressing. Even when I would drink water, I would have to go to the bathroom. Like that is how brutal it was. And so I remember one day I had a massive, massive headache. I was laying on my bed. I was all alone. And I remember just staring at my dog, and I thought, he's going to outlive me. He is going to outlive me. I literally thought that one, I wasn't going to make it to the age of 30. I was probably 24 at this point. I was like, there's no way I'm going to make it to the age of 30. And two, my dog, who is 2.5 right now, is going to outlive me. I'm going to die before this. And I just laid in bed and stared at my dog, feeling so miserable, the most miserable I had ever felt in my life up to that point. And, I didn't recognize that that was the start of serious depression for myself. And I also didn't realize that if I had to go to the grocery store, if I had to go to work, anything that I had to do, I would start experiencing severe anxiety because I always had to run to the bathroom. And I didn't recognize that as anxiety. I didn't, the increased heart rate, the sweating, the nervousness. I mean, that was all anxiety. I just didn't recognize it. And my doctor didn't refer me to a mental health professional, which, I really do think that most IBD patients should see a mental health professional because, again, one day our lives are normal or what's normal for us, and then things seemingly change overnight or over a period of a time. And it's rough because your life is never the same after you're diagnosed. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing, it just is. But it's hard to cope, especially when you're not used to it. And so, another sign that I completely missed was my friend, my college roommate, had invited me to her family's house for Christmas. I had said I would go, even though I didn't feel like going. And I got so depressed that I didn't show up. And even to this day, like, that is so, it's just hard to look back on and realize that I was so depressed that I couldn't even go. And I loved her family. Her family knew me, everything. There was no reason to go, but I was so depressed that I couldn't even bring myself to get dressed on Christmas Day and go over to her house. I just wanted to be alone and with my dog. I just wanted to be home alone on Christmas Day with my dog. And it just was. And so that, again, my withdrawal from my friends, my withdrawal from my family, those were all signs of depression that I missed. And I didn't I didn't recognize it. And I don't know how, looking back now, all these years later, I don't know how I missed it, but I did. And so, if you are going through these things, like, you don't want to be around your family, you don't want to be around your friends, and you have a healthy relationship with them. Now, if your family, is overly critical or makes you very nervous or anxious, then yes, of course, you need to, they don't provide support for you, then yes, you need to worry about yourself, and you should remove yourself from that situation until they can respect your boundaries. But if you have a very loving, supportive family and very loving, supportive friends that want to be there for you, and you can't bring yourself to go be with them, or you don't want them to come over, then that maybe you should go see a mental health professional because you may be depressed. And there is nothing wrong with that. We're human. I don't know what the stigma is about depression because there shouldn't be one. Many of us suffer alone, and it doesn't have to be that way. Um, a couple more instances that I missed that I wish I would have known is there was a really deep, dark time in my life where I felt that um, maybe I didn't want to be here anymore. And I really contemplated kind of ending it all because I couldn't control my bowels. I was extremely depressed, and I didn't recognize I was depressed. I had withdrawn from my family and friends, and all I wanted to do was hang out with my dog because my dog, who was a very big German Shepherd, his name was Caesar. He just laid there with me and he comforted me. And I remember falling to my knees and sobbing uncontrollably and just like wrapping my arms around his furry neck and just crying, crying, crying into his neck. And um, he just sat there. And my dog saved me that night. And I do believe that he's an angel. He was an angel from above that was here to kind of guide me during some of the darkest times of my life. And even going through all of that, I didn't realize that I was depressed. And again, looking back, it's easy to realize, oh, how did you not know you were depressed? But I didn't. And again, my doctor never even thought to refer me to a mental health professional. So if you have inflammatory bowel disease or you suffer from autoimmune disease or really anything, if what I have said in this video kind of, strikes you as you're like, oh, I have withdrawn from family and friends who I have a healthy relationship. I don't feel like going, leaving the house. I have anxiety anytime I go somewhere. I just feel like it's hard and I don't want to be here anymore. If you have any of those feelings, please, please, please see a mental health professional. Get help right away. There is nothing wrong with seeing a psychologist. There is nothing wrong with seeing a psychiatrist. There is nothing wrong about talking about how you're feeling because I promise you, I look back now, all of these years later, at this point, it's been probably 16 years, 17 years after the lowest point in my life. And I have lived a lot of life since then. I had children. I've seen several parts of the country I never thought I would see. I fell in love with nutrition science. And so I promise you that there is life beyond your diagnoses and there is life beyond your symptoms. Life will get better. Sometimes it just takes a really, really long time. And the best thing you can do for yourself is, to talk to somebody, talk to a mental health professional. Because we suffer, and a lot of times, us IBD patients, those of us with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, we suffer alone, and it doesn't have to be that way. I hope you all get value from this video. Feel free to share it with your family and friends if you kind of want them to know sometimes how dark it can feel, to have IBD. And I look forward to connecting with you all soon. Bye.